everybody. I'm not the teacher. I'm the tech guy who does Zoom and Web Live. But your teacher should be here in just a second. Oh, here comes your teacher, Professor McCord, right now.
Hi everyone, I'm Saki. We are going to talk about the nature of philosophy today.
No, I'm just joking now.
What is philosophy? Well, in Greek, the word philosophy... Question, Bobby? Philo means love, and Sophia means wisdom. So what the word philosophy means in Greek is literally the love of wisdom. That doesn't work too well as a definition of philosophy. Wisdom is too vague. It can mean too many different things to too many different people. For example, if you ask a Christian priest or a Muslim imam what wisdom is, they might give a very different answer from a philosophy professor who studies John Stuart Mill, or from an atheist who doesn't think there is a God. Question, did you have a question on the material? So to define philosophy, we can give this definition. Philosophy is the discipline that uses logic, reasoning, to question our most basic or fundamental assumptions. Now, what are those basic assumptions? Well, I would define them as assumptions that other areas of thought make and refuse to question, sort of the sacred cows of... Did you have a question, Bobby? Please, I think it behooves us all to focus, and please do not press the button unless you have something to say. Would that be okay, everyone? There are these areas of... It does say on the syllabus, I would like for you to use your actual name as the way to identify you when we're using Web Live, please. There are these areas of thought that do not question certain assumptions, and I'll give a few examples. You know what? These interruptions are just getting out of hand here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a video that will explain what I'm talking about. These areas of thought that make these certain sacred cow assumptions that philosophy is unwilling to make.
First, let's consider the realm of morality. What assumption do we make in our everyday morals?
Fine. All right. Cool. Right. Well, just you're gonna have to. You're just gonna, because I'm. Please be sympathetic to the situation.
No. Sympathetic.
You argue about whether your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse is treating you with the appropriate level of respect. You and that other person are assuming that there really is a moral standard by which we know how other people should be treated. If there were no standard, then there'd be no big argument about whether your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse was living up to that standard or not. Now, here in this case, Alicia's pretty mad because Alex has kissed Charlotte, and so she thinks he didn't live up to that standard of respect that he owes his commitment to her, whereas he thinks, well, yes, maybe I didn't live up to the standard, but there were mitigating circumstances that made it impossible for me to live up to that standard. In the case of morality, then, we've learned that the sacred cow assumption that those of us who are in the moral realm make is that there really is a right and wrong. Morality really exists.
I heard about a man some time ago on the West Coast. He was in a Methodist
There
church,
are some religious
and he
traditions
decided that he
that
was gonna
don't
tithe his
assume
time.
that
He would give
God
10%
really
of his time to the
exists.
church.
But
Going and
most
visiting-
really do make that as their sacred cow assumption. Imagine if Billy Graham, Reverend Billy Graham, you see here, started a sermon by saying something like this: with all the pain and suffering in the world, how can we believe in a God? Well, you would know that by the end of the sermon, he would still believe in God, that he was just using that statement as an icebreaker to get people interested in his sermon. I mean, it would be crazy if by the end of the sermon he had talked himself out of believing in God. So I have to be careful on this one, but with a lot of religious belief as an area of thought, there's the sacred cow assumption that God exists. But we'll see in this philosophy class that philosophy has that as an open question. It doesn't assume that God does not exist, but it doesn't assume that he does exist. So it looks at the pros and cons and tries to come to an answer about whether we ought to believe that God exists. So the sacred cow assumption in religious thought is often, at least, that there's a God.
hydrogen bomb appeared on the public horizon.
In science, there's no statement that is immune from revision in light of further evidence. That is to say, even water is H2O could be changed in science if evidence came out tomorrow that water is not H2O. Imagine if the hydrogen in H2O, if it wasn't really hydrogen, it was just XYZ masking itself as hydrogen. If they found that out, well, then they would revise the belief, and scientists would no longer believe that water is H2O. Well, so it's strange to say then that science would have a sacred cow assumption. However, there is one sacred cow assumption in science, and it's the belief that humans are capable of knowing, that humans can have knowledge. You can't run an experiment to determine if people are capable of having knowledge, because the very act of running the experiment assumes that people are capable of knowing and interpreting the data or the results of the experiment. So this kind of leads us into what in philosophy is the matrix problem. How do you even know that you're in a room with other people, or how do you know that you're looking at your device right now? Philosophy calls that into question in epistemology, the unit on the theory of knowledge. Can we really know anything? Is it possible that the only thing we can know is that we don't know anything at all? And in this class, when we look at the philosopher René Descartes, we'll see him investigating whether humans are capable of having knowledge. So what do I love about philosophy? Philosophy is the one discipline that uses the tool of logic to question all those assumptions that the other areas of thought refuse to question. So in philosophy, we do ask whether God exists. In philosophy, we do ask if there really is a right and wrong, about the nature of morality. And in philosophy, we do ask, can human beings know? That's what I love about philosophy, and it's also the definition.
Here are the branches of philosophy. Logic uses evidence or lines of reasoning to support a claim or idea. I'm pale, my stomach hurts, therefore I'm sick. Metaphysics deals with the question of what sort of stuff exists. Are you made only of physical body like tables and chairs? Or do you have a non-physical, supernatural soul that is part of what you are? Epistemology is the study of knowledge. Can we know anything? If so, what? Do you know you're in a room with other people and desks, or right now that you're sitting there looking at a device? Philosophy of religion mainly deals with the question of whether God exists. Can God's existence be proven or disproven? And ethics deals with the nature of right and wrong. Are some actions right and some wrong? Are some moral principles true for everyone? Or is morality relative to the culture or the individual? Or maybe there's no morality. Maybe it's just a superstition we believe in, like we talked about before. Oh, Bobby, we're at the end now. Did you have a question?
Bobby, You're that sock puppet. But how can you be real?
Don't you see, Chris? You made me real. I am you. Ha, ha, ha.
Oh, hey guys, sorry I'm running a little late for class here. Anyway, today we're going to talk about argumentation and using logic in arguments.